Hi everybody. I'm going to do our mini lecture on a video today just to hopefully save my voice and not exaggerate my coughing. So what we're working on today is the sampling methods and sources of bias assignment in your packet. And then I will also give you 3 out of our 4 projects for today, or for this unit, excuse me. So the first project, which I would recommend finishing today or at least by Friday, but today would be ideal, is the sheep virus project, and I'll talk about that in just a second. And then we have some survey projects that you guys will be working on throughout the unit, and they're due on the last day of class. So that's kind of what we're working on today. And then on Friday, you guys will be working on the visual representation assignments. So the big picture of how statistics works is when you want to measure something about a population, it's usually not practical to actually measure the entire population because usually there's way too many people to test in order to get your measurement. And so what we do instead is we select a subset of the population that's called our sample. And we measure whatever characteristic we want to measure about the sample, and then we use that to extrapolate the measurement of the population. So the measurement that we make in the sample is called a statistic. That's why we call it statistics. But basically, like, this could be anything from the mean of the data if it's numerical data. It could be percentages of categorical data. It could be things like the standard deviation, which we'll learn about later. But basically, the measurements of the sample are called statistics. And then the measurement of the population is called a parameter. So assuming that your sample is a fair representation of the population, then the statistic should be close to the parameter. So if you were to select, say, like a sample of every 100th person that walked into a grocery store, and you looked at how much money they spent at the grocery store, and you averaged all of those numbers, and you found that on average, the people in your sample spent, I don't know, like $82 at the grocery store. You could use that, and assuming that you chose your sample in a way that fairly represented everyone who goes to the grocery store, then the parameter, or the average of the people in the entire population, or the people who go to the grocery store, would also probably be close to $82. It might not be exact, but the bigger sample you get, the more likely it is that your statistic is going to be really close to the parameter. And one of the things you guys are working on today is looking at different sampling methods. And in the video for that, I explained how some methods are better than others, and kind of the pros and cons of those. So this is the big picture of how statistics works. And what you guys are going to be doing on the sheep virus project today is I have these bags of beans, and these beans are representing a flock of sheep. And some of the sheep in the flock they have a virus, and those are represented by the white beans, and then the black beans are healthy sheep. And what you guys are going to be doing is you guys are going to be taking a sample of 30 sheep from the bag, and you're going to figure out how many of those sheep have the virus, and then you're going to use that to predict the number of sheep in the entire flock that have the virus. And in real life, you would do this, by just like taking 30 sheep and giving them the test for the virus. And you wouldn't ever actually know how many sheep in the entire flock are sick unless you tested all of them. But since we're working with beans that are representing the sheep, you're then going to look and see how many of the sheep are actually sick, because it doesn't cost us anything to count up the number of white beans total in the bag. And then you're going to see how close your prediction was, essentially. So the instructions should be pretty self-explanatory, but if you have any questions about it, let me know. And then the other projects that I'm handing out don't have to get finished today. not by any means, because on these two projects, you guys are going to be doing a survey. So if you would like to, you can finish the front page of this project, because this is basically where you're planning and strategizing how you're going to do your surveys. So you can combine both of these surveys into like one Google form if you want to. You also don't have to use a Google form to collect the surveys. You can just do it by paper. But basically, you need to have a quantitative question. And then you also need to have a qualitative question. And once you collect all of your quantitative data, which has to do with numbers, you're going to do things like finding the mean and the standard deviation, the median, the mode, and you're going to make like a histogram with that data. And then for the qualitative data, which is like data that sorts people into categories like eye color or political affiliation or things like that, you're going to use that data to make like pie charts and bar charts and different representations of qualitative data. So if you choose to do your surveys together, which I think would be easiest because you need to collect 30 responses, you just need to make sure you have two questions. One that can be answered with a number, like how tall are you, or how many hours do you spend watching TV, or something along those lines that can be answered with a number. And then for your qualitative question, it needs to have something that sorts people into categories. So if you want to do the front page, basically that will just plan out what question you're going to ask, what sampling method you're going to use, what population you're going to survey, and what biases might be present. So for most of you, probably your population will be like SUU students. Or if you decide to send out your surveys on like your social media, your population would be like your group of friends and family of people within your group. But basically, you figure out which population you're going to be surveying, how you're going to select a sample of at least 30 people, and then if you're going to do like a digital version of the survey, you might want to create that survey today so that you can start collecting responses and start analyzing your data next week. So those are the three projects that you guys have. Again, these survey projects probably won't be actually finished until after Thanksgiving, but you want to start planning them right now so that you can collect the data next week and then analyze the data when we get back from Thanksgiving break. And then once you've got the front page of those survey projects completed, raise your hand and have me come check them. Just because I want to check your questions to make sure that they're worded in a way that will give you valid responses. Like, for example, if you said, how many hours of TV do you watch? That's not a very clear question because it doesn't specify, are we talking about every year or every month or every week? And people might respond to that question just based on what they think you mean versus what you're actually trying to ask them. So let me check your front page before you start collecting data just to make sure that you get valid data. And then the other thing I also wanted to mention on this is you guys are not going to be presenting on this in class. Instead, you're just going to submit the paper that I gave you with your bar chart and your pie charts and all of the different things that are asked for on the back side of the page. And then I also want you to submit your actual data. So if you collect your data in a Google form, you can just send me a copy of the spreadsheet from your Google form. And if you collect it by hand, you can just enter the data into a spreadsheet really quickly after you collect all the data and send me that spreadsheet. So that's what you'll be submitting during the last week of class for these surveys. I also just wanted to mention, I know my cough sounds horrible, but it's not contagious. It's just something my body does when I get stressed. So I'm sorry it sounds so bad, but don't worry, I'm not going to get you guys sick. It just sounds bad. So that's it for today. If you have any questions, let me know.